Now the lawsuit, which is the most interesting aspect. Now this came out very recently on Friday, where China's NIO underwriters must face US shareholder lawsuit. Basically, a judge, he said that he was not going to dismiss the case over statement before the 2018 IPO. So he's basically going ahead with the case where NIO and its bankers must face a shareholder lawsuit alleging the Chinese electric vehicle manufacturer falsely telling the investors it had a new factory under construction during its 2018 initial public offering. Now, this is interesting because back in 2018, when NIO was doing its IPO, they mentioned that their Shanghai factory was currently under construction. But later on, and this lawsuit is basically not just NIO, they're also claiming that the underwriters, which is Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, failed to do their due diligence. The factory was important to investors because it would give the company its own manufacturing capacity and alleviate NIO's reliance on a Chinese state-owned manufacturer, some analysts viewed as a third tier, they said. Now, basically right now, NIO is working with JAC, who manufactures the vehicles, and JAC is owned by Volkswagen. It's a consortium and basically owned and controlled by the Chinese state. That's where some concerns are coming through, because this factory is not owned by NIO. They don't have their own manufacturing plant. And these are articles back from 2018. You can see this was September 2018, where NIO doesn't have its own factory. It plans to lease a factory that is currently under construction in Shanghai. It expects that factory to be ready by the end of 2020. In the meantime, the ES8 is being built under contract by Chinese automaker JAC Motors in a facility that can build about 120,000 NIOs a year. But later, and this is back in 2018, right, when the IPO came out, in March of 2019, NIO came out and said, this was the annual letter, or the final, the annual letter which came out for the year of 2018, back in March of 2019. And in this letter, they came out and said that they're going to be dropping their plans. So Shanghai manufacturing plant. In 2017, NIO signed framework agreements and memorandums with the government and related entities in Jiading, Shanghai, to build a manufacturing plant for NIO. Recently, the company has agreed in principle with these contractual counterparties to terminate the plant for this manufacturing plant, pending signing off definitive termination agreements. The language is very interesting because they're talking about how they already had these agreements and memorandums with the government. But in this lawsuit, they're talking about and telling that when they tried to investigate and look into this and also asked some of their employees, that there was no construction, there was no construction permits even issued against them. So this is as per the lawsuit. But here this is talking about how they already had some agreements and memorandums, and they had genuine plans of moving forward. The new initiative allows NIO to focus on the joint manufacturing model in the long term. The company believes that the existing JAC plant in Hefei will give it capacity and flexibility to support its market penetration and growth plans for the next 2 or 3 years. Later, this is fast forward, going back to 2021, electric vehicle, and NIO is now starting to produce electric cars in its new plant in NIO Park. So it's planning on manufacturing their plant. This was announced by company boss William Li. Construction of the NIO production facility has already begun, he said. This is going to be later in Q3 2022. Again, we don't know how, only future will decide how these things pan out and come into picture. But yeah, I found it very interesting. Just want to share this with you. There's no financial advice here. This is just research going on and understanding what's happening with the companies.